Hello, we are going to do and demonstrate the 5-layer density challenge, which you can do at home. So to start with, we have got 5 glasses, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You should have a jug of tap warm water, some salt, and 5 different salt colorings. You'll need your clear straw, and you'll need a teaspoon as well. So to start with, we're going to put different amounts of salt into each glass. I have got Maldon salt. You can use other versions as well. So into the first glass, we're going to put 1 teaspoonful. Into the second glass, we're going to put 2. And you can probably see where I'm going with the third glass. And the fourth glass. And finally, the fifth glass will have 5 teaspoons of salt in it. Once we've done that, we're then going to create our solution. So we're going to pour in water, mix the salt will dissolve into the water, creating a solution. We need to put as much as possible the same amount of water in each glass. Once you've done that, use the teaspoon to stir and make sure all the salt, as much as possible at least, is dissolved. This is why it's best to use tap warm water, as the salt will dissolve quicker the warmer the water. It will still dissolve if it's cold, but it just makes it slightly quicker to get going with the experiment. You need to take a little bit of time to make sure the glasses with the most salt in have all dissolved. They'll need more stirring than the glasses with the lesser amounts of salt in. Once you've done that, then I'm going to colour the water. Otherwise, whilst there would still be a 5-layer densities, you wouldn't actually be able to see what those densities are. So we're going to start by colouring, adding a few drops of red colouring to the first glass, green to the second, pink to the third, blue to the fourth, and orange to the final one. Now the choices of colourings are fundamentally yours. I mean, it doesn't really matter. My advice is though that try to make sure that colours that are next to each other are different and visibly different. It will improve the effect of the density of the layers, the visual effect of the layers. Next is the tricky bit. Take your straw. It's easier to begin with. You're going to start with the lowest density. So the lowest density will be the one with the least amount of salt in it, which will be the 1 teaspoon of salt. So the first one, just a little way, put your finger over the top. Dip it into the second one, release your finger for a moment and put it in. Put it into the third, put it in. Open your finger very, very quickly. Make sure you're holding tight. The fourth and the fifth. So what is happening? What is happening is that we're changing the density of these liquids. They all start off fundamentally as water. Well, they started off as salt in the glass, but water has a set density, and the density is determined by how many molecules occupy that space. Whatever space it is, in this sense, we've got either the space that's of water and liquid in the glass, or the amount of liquid that's in the straw. Now what we're changing is the density, and the density is the concentration of molecules in that same space. By adding differing amounts of salt into each glass, we're putting more molecules into the same space between each glass. So in the first glass, we start with a smaller amount of molecules because we only have 1 teaspoon of salt. In the fifth glass, we have a larger amount of molecules because we've got 5 teaspoons of salt, which increases the density. What that means is that those liquids fundamentally become different. They are all water. Yes, the colours don't make them different because the colours don't change the density. What has changed the density is the amount of salt. And that's why, because they have different densities, they therefore don't mix in the same way, which is why they can form those 5 different layers in your straw, which we can see in the picture and we could see in the experiment as we went along. So that is the 5-layer density experiment. Take care. The key to this experiment is your thumb. Make sure 2 things. Firstly, the first glass is the easiest one, but make sure there's always a very strong, a very firm covering and a firm seal of the thumb over the edge of the test tube, because as soon as you let that slightly off, it will just drop back in. The next bit of skill on this is when you're dipping into each glass, go deep, and as soon as you let your thumb off, liquid is going to start to enter the straw. So make sure it's a very quick, almost blip of thumb movement to let just a small amount of liquid in. Because any longer, and you let far too much liquid in. The difficulty you have when you get to the end is that liquid will then be too much, and it will have too much force pushing down, and it will end up breaking the seal. So nice and quick thumb opening. Go deep on each glass and dip the straw right down to the bottom, and that way you're going to get a nice clean 5-layer density experiment result. Enjoy.